You get a fantastic perspective on these wrecks that you don't get flying around them in a sub. You really are like a person, like it would have looked to somebody walking the decks at that time. What is that? Is that a hole? That is for sure a hole. This should be Carl's office. This is where he worked. This is right next to the adjutant's office.
The Bismarck was the most terrifying warship ever built. When it finally sank in May 1941, it took over 2,000 men to the bottom of the Atlantic. For decades, the story seemed simple. Overwhelming British firepower destroyed Germany's mighty battleship. But when deep-sea explorers finally reached the wreck and sent cameras into its shattered command center, they discovered something impossible, an artifact that rewrites everything we thought we knew about the Bismarck's final moments. The impossible discovery. The expedition came in 2002, 13 years after Robert Ballard first located the wreck. This time, filmmaker James Cameron's team wasn't satisfied with just photographing the exterior. They wanted answers. They wanted to go inside. The wreck lies nearly 16,000 feet below the surface. At that depth, the pressure reaches a crushing 6,800 pounds per square inch, enough force to crumple a modern submarine like a tin can. Cameron's team descended in Russian-built Mir submersibles, 7-inch thick nickel-steel spheres designed to withstand the abyss. But the real explorers were two small, remotely operated vehicles nicknamed Jake and Elwood. These nimble robots, connected by fiber optic tethers, could navigate the flooded, corroded passageways where no human could survive. Their mission was forensic, to finally answer the question that had haunted naval historians for over 60 years. What really sent the Bismarck to the bottom? The descent took hours. Finally, the massive wreck emerged from the darkness, a 50,000-ton monster sitting almost perfectly upright. Its enormous 15-inch guns still pointing forward in silent defiance. The ship was covered in rusticles, strange icicle-like formations of rust, yet it remained eerily intact. The team's target was the superstructure, the armored command tower where Admiral Gunther Lütjens had directed the ship's final battle. The small ROV Jake slipped through a blown-out porthole into the Admiral's bridge.
Yeah, this is where that shell came in and blew right through the bridge.
Inside was a tangled maze of rusted metal and hanging wires, a scene of absolute destruction frozen in time since 1941. Jake's powerful lights cut through the murky water. As the team watched their monitors, hearts pounding. They were the first to see inside this tomb in over 60 years. The robot glided past navigation tables and engine telegraphs, through the compass room, where the main steering wheel sat surprisingly intact. Then the pilot maneuvered Jake toward the main compass binnacle, a heavily armored steel cylinder designed to protect the ship's master compass from shellfire. That's when they saw it. Wedged behind the compass housing, somehow protected from battle, capsizing, and a 3-mile plunge to the seabed, was a small dark object. It wasn't metal. It looked organic. The robotic arm moved closer, light flooding the cramped space. The team held their breath. It was a book, a small leather-bound notebook, roughly 6 by 4 inches. The leather cover was swollen and warped, but impossibly intact, preserved by leaked hydraulic oil and the complete absence of oxygen in the cold, deep water. This discovery should not exist. Think about it. This ship had endured 2 hours of bombardment from Britain's biggest battleships. It had been hit by hundreds of shells, flipped upside down, plunged 3 miles, and struck the bottom with enough force to cause a mile-long mudslide. Any paper should have been blasted to pulp or dissolved into nothing. But there it was. The team couldn't risk retrieving it. The wreck is a protected war grave. But the high-definition camera could zoom in. The book was wedged open to its last page. Written in frantic, hurried German script was a final message. The ink had run in places, but several lines remained miraculously legible. What the camera recorded wasn't a simple log entry. It was a cryptic, terrifying message that didn't just reveal how the Bismarck sank. It hinted at a final mystery that history never recorded, one that opens questions we may never answer. The first discovery. To understand why that notebook matters, we need to go back to 1989 and the man who started this investigation. Dr. Robert Ballard, the same oceanographer who found the Titanic 4 years earlier. Ballard was hunting for the Bismarck in a search area covering over 150 square miles of brutal ocean. His tool was Argo, a 12-ton robotic sled packed with sonar and cameras. For days they mowed the lawn, dragging Argo back and forth in a grid pattern, staring at grainy monitors showing nothing but mud, rocks, and occasional deep-sea creatures. Then, on June 8, 1989, an unmistakable shape appeared on sonar, huge twisted plates of steel, a debris field pointing like breadcrumbs toward the main wreck. When Argo passed over the Bismarck, stunned silence fell. The ship wasn't the shattered wreck they expected. It wasn't broken in two like the Titanic, or obliterated like its victim, HMS Hood. The battleship sat upright on the muddy slope of a massive extinct underwater volcano, 15,700 feet down. Its 823-foot hull was almost completely intact. It had slammed into the volcano and slid for over a mile, yet remained whole, a ghost ship, eerily preserved and menacing even in death. This discovery defied everything they thought they knew about how a 50,000-ton warship meets its end. The mystery was just beginning. Ballard's team descended in the submersible Alvin, becoming the first humans to see the Bismarck since its final battle. The superstructure was shredded, a chaotic mess of jagged holes and twisted metal pulverized by British shells. But the main hull told a different story. The Bismarck's primary defense was a massive armor belt, almost 13 inches of solid steel designed to stop any shell in the world. As Alvin's lights played across this armored belt, the team started counting penetrations. They found only 8 major holes above the waterline, 8, and below the waterline, where torpedoes should have ripped the ship. Open? Nothing. No gaping wounds, no catastrophic breaches. The armored heart of the beast was intact. This was baffling. How could a ship relentlessly attacked by battleships, cruisers, and aircraft for 2 days sink when its main defenses were never broken? Ballard's discovery didn't provide answers. It created a more profound, disturbing question. What most people don't realize is this finding gave new life to a controversial claim made by German survivors. The British didn't sink the Bismarck. They did it themselves. The monster unleashed. To understand the panic in that final cryptic note, you need to understand what the Bismarck was. Commissioned in August 1940, she was the most powerful warship on the planet, a masterpiece of engineering built for one purpose: destruction. At over 823 feet long and displacing 50,000 tons, her weapons were the stuff of nightmares. 8 massive 15-inch guns housed in 4 turrets could hurl before-that 800-pound shells, the weight of a small car, over 21 miles. She could hit targets beyond the horizon. She was fast too, capable of over 30 knots, fast enough to outrun almost anything she couldn't outgun. Protected by that incredible 13-inch armor belt, she was essentially invincible. In May 1941, she slipped out on her first and only mission, Operation Rheinübung, or Rhine Exercise. Her goal was brutal: break into the Atlantic and sever the Allied convoy lifeline, keeping Britain alive. If the Bismarck got loose among undefended merchant ships, the war would be over for the British. Winston Churchill knew this. The entire Royal Navy knew this. The Bismarck wasn't just a ship, it was an existential threat. On May 24th, the nightmare became real. The Bismarck was intercepted in the Denmark Strait by HMS Hood and HMS Prince of Wales. Hood was a legend, the biggest warship in the British fleet, a symbol of naval power for 20 years. But she was a battle cruiser with dangerously thin deck armor. The battle lasted 6 minutes. At 5:55 a.m., the Bismarck fired. One shell, fired from over 10 miles away, struck Hood midship. It was a 1 in a million shot. The shell plunged through the thin deck armor and detonated in the ammunition magazines. Hood exploded in a catastrophic fireball, broke in 2, and sank in less than 3 minutes. Of 1,118 men, only 3 survived. The world was stunned. The Bismarck had announced its arrival in the most terrifying way possible. Now, Churchill issued a simple, chilling order: sink the Bismarck. Every available British ship was diverted. This was no longer naval engagement. It was a vendetta, the fatal shot. But the Bismarck was wounded. A shell from Prince of Wales had pierced a forward fuel tank, causing a leak and contaminating fuel supplies. Admiral Lutyens turned toward France, toward the only dry dock big enough for repairs at Saint Nazaire. For 24 terrifying hours, the Bismarck vanished into the stormy Atlantic. British panic set in. They'd lost the beast. A single, outdated Catalina flying boat spotted the oil slick on May 26th. The hunters knew where their prey was, but the main British fleet was too far away. Only aircraft carrier HMS Ark Royal was close enough to strike. And Ark Royal's weapon? Swordfish biplanes, fabric-covered antiques with open cockpits and a top speed of 138 Defies. These string bags were sent to attack the most advanced battleship in the world. In howling gales, they attacked. The Bismarck's advanced anti-aircraft guns couldn't track the slow-moving biplanes. Most torpedoes missed or bounced off the thick armor, but then came another 1-in-a-million shot. A single torpedo struck the Bismarck's stern, slamming the rudders hard to port and jamming them there. This was the fatal blow. The mighty Bismarck was now stuck turning in a helpless circle, away from France and toward the British fleet. Engineers tried desperately to fix the rudders. They even sent divers into the icy Atlantic to blast them free. Nothing worked. Admiral Lucian sent his final message. "Ship unmaneuverable. We will fight to the last shell." On May 27th, battleships Rodney and King George I face closed in. For nearly 2 hours, they pummeled the Bismarck at point-blank range. More than 700 heavy shells were fired, turning the upper decks into burning wreckage. But still, the Bismarck would not sink. Its flags flew, the hull remained buoyant. British cruisers fired torpedoes. Still, it floated. This is where the mystery deepens. The final secret. We're back in 2002, 3 miles down, staring at that impossible notebook. For decades, the 115 survivors claimed they scuttled the ship themselves, that engineers opened watertight doors and planted demolition charges with 9-minute fuses. They were determined their ship wouldn't become a British prize. This was dismissed as prideful excuse. The British needed their victory. But the drone footage changes everything. The intact outer armor supports the scuttling theory. The ship wasn't ripped open from outside. Cameron's bots found the decks below the main armor had been compressed downward by 10 to 13 feet. Clear evidence the ship flooded massively from the inside out. The weight of internal flooding crushed the structure as it plunged into the abyss. This is the smoking gun. The British bombardment destroyed the ship's ability to fight, move, or communicate. They made its end inevitable, but the final act that sent it on its 3-mile plunge, that was an inside job. And the notebook confirmed it. The camera captured the final entry, dated May 27th, 10:20 a.m., moments before the ship slipped beneath the waves. The translation was chilling. The Admiral has released the crew. The charges are set. Demolition time, 10:30. Proof. A first-hand account from the control room confirming the scuttling order. The survivors had been telling the truth all along, until the camera panned to the last hurried line, a line that makes no sense. "We have done our duty, but there is..." It's something else. The shadows in the water, they are not ours. The unanswered question. What shadows was this officer seeing in the ship's final moments? This is the real mystery, the discovery that truly should not exist. Was the officer hallucinating from shell shock in a control room being systematically destroyed? Were the shadows German U-boats desperately trying to help? U-56 was in visual range but had no torpedoes. But why write, "They are not ours"? Or was it something else entirely? 2 1-in-a-million shots, sinking Hood, then being crippled by an ancient biplane. Were these coincidences, or was the Bismarck being herded toward its fate? Some explorers report a profound, watched feeling near the wreck. Strange sonar contacts appear and disappear as if the ship itself remains haunted. The notebook confirms the crew met their duty, but it suggests they weren't alone in the water when they did. So, what were the shadows that officer saw? Was it wartime delusion? Or did something else witness the end of the Bismarck, something that history forgot to record? The leather-bound notebook shouldn't exist. That it survived at all is impossible. That it contains this message is unfathomable. It solves one mystery only to create another we may never answer. The Bismarck took its final secret to the bottom, preserved in impossible ink on an impossible page, waiting in the darkness 3 miles down.